one soul ring.
Yay.
Got it.
And I didn't. Mine's not paused this time.
Oh, perfect.
That's good.
Yeah. We don't want that. We don't want you to miss out on.
Yeah.
We don't want you to miss out on me complaining about people taking their shirts off when it's like 20 degrees outside. It's like any excuse.
Need that content.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Turn One Soul Ring. I'm Kevin.
Hey, I'm Eric.
And I'm Riley.
And today we'll be dexplaining Eric's Velomachus extra combatant. Wait, let me do that again because I'm going to say it wrong like the first time just so it's just more succinct. So today on the show we'll be explaining Eric's Velomachus extra combatachus commander deck. Great name. I'm going to say the dragon's name correct the rest of the time, but that's just how it sounded in my head, and I liked it. So much like last week, I wasn't able to find a substantial amount of backstory on this elder dragon, so we're just going to skip right on past that part today. We'll kick things off with the deck categories, then move on to our honorable mention segment before wrapping things up. But before we get to our first category, Eric, how can listeners get in touch with us?
Yeah, remember those elder dragons are just elder. And that's our story.
Yeah, exactly. They're old. Yeah, and they started they started a school. They started 5 schools, so it's not quite the same as Harry Potter.
No, because they got together and decided to make these 5 schools.
I guess I don't actually know. Yeah.
Anyways, everybody can find us on Instagram at Turn One Soul Ring the Podcast. You can message us directly via email, turnonsoulring@gmail.com. We throw everything up on YouTube, so you can search up Turn One Soul Ring the Podcast to find us the easiest. And also, we have one of those things called the Patreon page. So if you like our stuff, definitely go check us out there. We got some cool little tiers over there. Our page is patreon.com/Turn1SoulRing.
Okay, so the commander of this deck is, of course, Velomachus Lorehold, and it is a legendary elder dragon, 5/5 for 5, a red and a white. It has flying, vigilance, and haste, and whenever it attacks, you look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value less than or equal to Velomachus Lorehold's power from among them without paying its mana cost. Then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay, so he's a big boy, and he has haste. What more do you want?
Yeah, you get that trigger like the turn you get to cast him, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so based on the title, I think we all have a pretty good idea of what this deck is trying to do.
Extra Combatachus.
Yeah. So we're just going to get to the first category here, and as usual, you can follow along with us by using the link to this deck list located at the top of the show notes. So first category we have here, well, technically the first category is the commander, but we already did that. So the first category is extra combat. We have Aggravated Assault, Aurelia the War Leader, Fury of the Horde, Morog, Fury of a Comb, Relentless Assault, Response Resurgence, that's a double card, or split card, excuse me, Savage Beating, Seize the Day, Waves of Aggression, and World at War. This is giving me Narset vibes, this whole category here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly the same kind of theme I was thinking when I saw Velomachus, so I'm glad to see you went this direction.
Cool. Extra combat is definitely something pretty fun to play with, and being able to cast those spells for free is pretty sweet.
Yeah, and it's not as like extra combat and extra turns sort of have a similar feel when you're sitting on the other side of the table from it, but extra combats don't feel quite as oppressive and not like they don't feel nearly as unfun to wait for as extra turns. So I think people have a pretty good I was going to say they have a good understanding of it, but I just mean I think there's a lot more tolerance for it is what I mean. I like that you can hit almost all of these cards. You obviously can't hit the like Aurelia or Morag, but everything else well, Fury of the Horde you can't hit, but Fury of the Horde you can cast for free, which is nice. If you have the Fury of the Horde is 5 red for a sorcery. You may exile 2 red cards from your hand rather than pay this spell's mana cost, and you get to untap all creatures that attacked this turn. After this main phase, there is an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase.
You can actually hit Fury of the Horde because Velomachus is less than or equal to. Oh, his power.
His power,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not his
power,
CMC.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
nice. But still, like if you can, if there's there are plenty of ways.
There's
to
definitely ways to augment. Yeah.
Totally.
So we will see that he can get bigger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Savage Beating is another kind of tricky card. It's an extra combat spell, but it's an instant. It's 3 red. You can only cast it on your turn and only during combat. So you choose one. Creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn, which is another kind of sub-theme of this deck. Or untap all creatures you control. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase, and then you can entwine it for 1 in a red, and you just get to do both. This is a card that I have played with a lot, and I think this says more about me as a player than that this card is particularly complicated. But there have been a lot of times where I've like gone all the way through combat, and I'm at my second main phase, and I'm like, okay, Savage Beating, here we go, and I'm just like sad face because I fucked it up.
And it is very unique because there is no main phase in between, so you're going to get a combat phase, and then you're going to get another combat phase like right away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, just
yeah, that is interesting, eh?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. There is also another little bit of a weird one. It's World at War. So it's 3 of anything and 2 red for a sorcery. It says after the first post-combat main phase this turn, there's an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. At the beginning of that combat, untap all creatures that attack this turn, and it does have rebound. So you want to watch out with this card, because if you have already done a combat and you're at the second main phase, you've hit the first post-combat main phase. And if you cast this, you're actually not going to get that effect.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you also won't get the rebound if you cast this off of Velomachus's trigger. So just keep that in mind. They didn't want to make rebound too powerful, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it has to be cast from your hand, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The other interesting thing about World at War is if you have a way of copying it or something like that, if you do make all of the copies before your first post-combat main phase, you actually do get all of the extra combat phases because they're all before you've cast it before the first post-combat main phase. So if you copied it twice, you would actually get 3 extra combats.
Okay, so if combat has ever confused you, this would be a good deck to pilot, I think.
Yep. Yeah, there were a couple cards. Like I had a lot of tabs open when I was making this deck. There were a couple cards I didn't know what did, and I was looking up stuff, and like things just like act really weird. Mm-hmm. The other one you definitely want to watch out for, because I know people have played this card wrong, is Morog, Fury of the Akum.
Mm-hmm.
So because his he's a 6/6 for 4 and 2 red. Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time it attacked this turn, but it has the landfall, so whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. At the beginning of that combat, untap all creatures you control. So you want to have your attack first so that all your stuff is tapped, so that you then get an additional phase where they get untapped and stuff like that. Because if you play your land right away, you're not going to get that extra combat to untap them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And I mean, I guess it's not the end of the world if you mess up, because Velomachus does have vigilance, which is a plus. But definitely, if you're looking to swing with your crew, like you want to sequence it correctly.
Totally.
Also, Aggravated Assault is a repeatable effect. It's 2 in a red for an enchantment. You can pay 3 and 2 red to untap all creatures you control. After this main phase, there is an additional combat phase, followed by an additional main phase, and you can only activate it as a sorcery. And, obviously, if you had enough mana, you could just... You could take endless combat phases, but... If you had a clear path to attack all your opponents with Velomachus or other creatures, you're just going to win the game. So I actually do have a card in my honorable mentions segment that would work infinitely well with this card. So
sweet.
Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely one of my favorite extra combat spells. Extra combat in general is something I really like. Also extra turns, so I'm not really sure why you guys keep playing with me, but here we go. I guess I didn't end up doing that too much with Paco. I did like a little bit of the. I think I started putting them in my deck, but I didn't seem to ever draw them, like extra combat steps. I maybe got that off a couple of times, but anyways.
Yeah, you just like one-shot people.
Yeah, you don't really need
That's all you needed.
The extra, yeah. So
the last one I want to put a light on is the Seize the Day. 3 of anything in a red for a sorcery. It says untap target creature. After this main phase, there's an additional combat phase, followed by an additional main phase. So it's a weird card where it's just like a lot of the time it doesn't work well in many decks, but because Velomachus just has Vigilance anyways, if you have a second creature, you can untap it, but you're going to be able to get that extra combat in. We really want our commander attacking all the time, so this card's really cool. And plus it has flashback for 2 of anything in a red. So after we cast it, we can probably have enough mana to get it going again, which is really sweet.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely great in a more Voltron-y deck like this one. Not that this is a Voltron deck per se. So
that theme.
The next category we have here is attack triggers. We have Backdraft Hellkite, Bruce Tarl, Boorish Herder, Dracuzeth, Maw of Flames, Itali Primal Storm, Goldspan Dragon, Hanwire Garrison, and Lelia the Blade Reforged.
This is the category that I axed the most cards from. I wanted to do more with this, but yeah. But anyways.
I'm a big fan of Backdraft Hellkite in this deck. I like the opportunity of being able to reuse your extra combat spells. So Backdraft Hellkite being a 3/red 4/4 flying dragon. When it attacks, each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn, and the flashback's equal to its mana cost. So just being able to like recast those, Seize the Day. Well, I guess Seize the Day has flashback, but like Waves of Aggression. Well, that has rebound or retrace. So, what about Relentless Assault? That one.
There you go.
Just recast that one.
Yeah, you can also like recast the Resurgence, and like Savage Beating. How does attacks? Yeah, so you can totally do the Savage Beating as well.
Yeah, definitely. It is just a nice little bit of reusability on those spells that could just kind of get you there. I don't know that I'd seen this card before, but it's kind of perfect here.
And then I had to throw Dracuseth in there because that's just so much value.
That's a big chonker.
It's 4 triple red for a 7/7 legendary dragon with flying. Whenever it attacks, it deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each of up to 2 other targets. So yeah, this could, once you get the engine going, I think this is going to be gravy, but it definitely could clear the way so that you can keep going and take out opponents. But yeah, being able to hit anything is
right. So you can just hit your opponent's faces.
Yeah, or they're planeswalkers, or don't waste time. Just hit them in the face. They're not going to get another turn, so it's fine.
Yeah. One card I really enjoyed adding to this, and I thought, because like you don't see it very often, is the Handwire Garrison. So it's 2 and a red for a 2/3. Whenever it attacks, you create 2 1/1 red human creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. And then it melds with the Handwire Battlements. And so if you have both of those out, you're going to have something that when it attacks, it creates 2 3/2 Eldrazi tokens. So it makes a lot of extra power for you.
Yeah, that is a nice touch. And just spoiler alert, the other one is in here, and we'll get to that. But
yeah,
I would hope so.
Yeah, it's like no, I didn't.
Yeah, but this is almost like I don't know, like these are you have obviously a lot of attack triggers in here. That's what the category is called. But it's almost like a tech card section as well. Like it's sort of like I wouldn't know where else to put these, but a lot of cool cards.
I was literally I looked at every single red and white card that had attack triggers.
Yeah.
But I did like because obviously this like Velomachus you can kind of do a little bit of Voltron with, so giving things double strike is always nice. So that's why Bruce Tarl is really good. because whenever he enters or attacks, you can give target creature double strike and lifelink as just a little bonus too.
So the next category is value spells. We have Chandra's Ignition, Korvath's Fury, Lightning Helix, Psychotic Fury, Repeated Reverberation, Temur Battle Rage, Thrilling Discovery, Volcanic Offering, and Wheel of Fate. Love to see Wheel of Fate in here because you can just cast it for free. You don't have to worry about suspend. So it's a sorcery. You can suspend it for suspend 4 for 1 and a red, and then when you remove all 4 suspend counters, each player discards their hand, then draws 7 cards. But with Velomachus's trigger, this card is its CMC is less than Velomachus's power, so you're just going to get to cast it out of if it's one of the 7 cards if you want to. So it's just sort of a nice way to kind of pseudo cascade into that and just like, okay, I need 7 new cards.
Let's go.
Yeah. It wouldn't be Eric without having a nice wheel effect in his deck, right?
Yeah, totally.
And it's like Wheel of Fortune you can obviously run, but it's like, I don't know, in this deck I think Wheel of Fate sounds like more fun because of just how the interaction works.
Yeah, and definitely more budget friendly.
Yes, much more budget friendly.
Yeah, and like the budget for this deck is more, compared to the deck that we talked about last week. And this isn't a dig at you at all, Riley, but this deck is like the price of this deck is probably a lot closer to like what I'd be comfortable with spending, like just in this range. So Eric, you did keep it a little more budget friendly. And all these spells, again, you can hit all of these, not just Wheel of Fate, but with Velomachus 5/5 as it is, you can hit all of these spells off of it. So that's nice too.
I love seeing Volcanic Offering. Volcanic Offering is 4 and a red for an instant that says destroy target non-basic land you don't control and target non-basic land of an opponent's choice you don't control. And it also deals 7 damage to target creature you don't control and 7 damage to target creature of an opponent's choice you don't control. So doing a lot of damage to stuff that you don't control. I think it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really I didn't even notice this card existed, and then when I found it I was like, this is a really fun card to hit for free, because it doesn't hit any of your stuff no matter what, and it can be some fun politics just to get rid of some stuff off the board.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, next category we have here is removal. We have Austere Command, Chaos Warp, Generous Gift, Promise of Loyalty, Return to Dust, Slash the Ranks, and Swords to Plowshares. So again, can hit all of these, except for Austere Command. You need to give Velomachus a bit of a buff if you want to hit that off of it. But I do really like the inclusion of both Promise of Loyalty and Slash the Ranks. So these are a couple of newer cards. Promise of Loyalty is like brand new. It's 4 and a white for a sorcery. Each player puts a vow counter on a creature they control and sacrifices the rest. Each of those creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control for as long as it has a vow counter on it. And Slash the Ranks is 3 and 2 white for a sorcery. Destroy all creatures and planeswalkers except for commanders. So these are very again, these are more like Voltron-y cards. It can wipe the board, and you just get to pick your best creature or the only creature you have, like for example Velomachus. But it's just you can, like I said, you can hit them with the attack trigger, and Promise of Loyalty of course protects you from the snapback. Slash the Ranks less so, but it also hits planeswalkers. So I think both these cards are just going to get you out of a lot of hot water, or not even hot water, just get rid of what your opponents are trying to do. So sometimes it does really pay to have only one creature that you care about on the board, unless somebody's running like edict effects. But we've been playing in like such a closed meta for so long. I think really the only edict effects we ever run into is from one of Trevor's decks, so I'm not too worried about it.
It's nice to see Swords to Plowshares, just a nice clean removal spell. I think always something I'd be happy to see, whether in my hand or in the pile that Velomachus reveals.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you just need to get rid of something.
Yeah, there's most times you can hit that. And then, of course, like Return to Dust, if you do hit it off of Velomachus, you only get to hit one thing. But again, if you have it in your hand and you do hard cast it, you can hit 2 targets. So it's a nice, like... I think Return to Dust is great for getting rid of artifacts and enchantments, since it's also exiles.
Yeah, it's definitely... I think it's definitely had a little bit more competition lately. There's just so many other options out there at lower CMCs that add a little bit of flexibility as well. So,
well, because there's Crush Contraband, which is 3 and a white, and you can choose one or both. So you can exile an artifact. Does it exile or just destroy?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one's exile.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm not going to check. So it just it you can exile an artifact, or you can exile an enchantment, or you can exile one of each. But you know, the argument for Return to Dust is that you can do, you know, 2 enchantments or 2 artifacts, you know, assuming you cast it during a main phase. So that, you know, that's just a nice little, like, there's that flexibility that goes along with it. So yeah, I you know, I like it here. It's nice to see it. It's nice to see you Return to Dust.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it is. And it's obviously in it has the C21 set symbol, so it's probably in the Boros deck, or maybe the the Lorehold deck. Excuse me. It has 4 converted mana value.
How dare you say Boros when we're talking about a Lorehold deck?
4 converted mana value.
Yeah, I know, I'm bad. But yeah, just, you know, you just got the classics in here. You got Chaos Warp, Generous Gift, Austere Command, one of the best board wipes around. So yeah, just got the good stuff. Looks like this one is also in C20. Huh, maybe the reprints were not better than I thought, but a little bit better than I thought. Maybe more functional than I thought. Anyways,
so not better, but better.
Yeah, better in a playable kind of way, which is, you know, I want to get the deck out of the box and have a good time with it. If the reprints aren't great, we're still getting pretty good bang for our buck.
Yeah.
So, next category we have here is protection. We have Chroma's Will, Boros Charm, Flawless Maneuver, Gisela, Blade of Goldnight, Areos, God of Victory. You don't see that one too often. And Teferi's Protection. I love Boros Charm. It's perfect for this deck. It's perfect in a lot of decks. You know, I think most of the time with this deck, you're going to be using the second and third option. But, you know, sometimes you might need to get rid of a problem walker, or you're going to be throwing so much damage around in this deck. Maybe you just need to dome somebody for 4 and finish them off. But, yeah, Boros Charm is just... It is definitely one of my all-time favorite cards. Probably, like, definitely like top 100. Somewhere in there is Boros Charm. Just permanence you control, gain indestructible until end of turn. Just, like, it's perfect. That's a perfect line of text.
Oh, yeah. All permanence is so great.
Yeah.
And again, like, because Velomachus is already pretty big, giving it double strike is nothing to shy at. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then you get, you know, with that double strike, you're going to get double triggers. You're going to get to dig 14 cards deep. So. Everybody wins. No, it's just an attack trigger, right? I thought it's not a damage trigger. I take that back. I was thinking of you know where I used to run a lot of double strike effects is in my Brago deck, because it works there, but
sure does.
That deck was like fun, but in a way that wasn't really fun for anybody, including myself. So.
You've definitely brought up your Brago deck a lot recently.
A lot of game actions. A lot of game actions, though.
There you go. Yeah. They're speaking my language. Yeah. Chroma's Will is a really spicy card, and like a little bit of a win condition in itself. So another one that's relatively new. This was Commander Legends that was released in.
Yeah.
So Chroma's Will is an instant for 3 and a white. Choose one. If you control your commander as you cast it, you can choose both. So creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn. Or creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn. So just a nice way, especially if you have Velomachus and somewhat of a board out on the battlefield, you can pretty much get in for an unblockable strike.
And yeah, with extra combat effects, like repeated unblockable strikes. Like I keep, going through this deck and, putting together the outline, I kept envisioning these very, ceiling scenarios where you're just going to get to a point where your engine is running and you just keep getting extra combat steps, and like your turn is just not going to end. And cards like this are going to help you achieve that. So, that's just
like the deck does have a little
win.
bit of a high average CMC, but like when this deck has a very high ceiling in terms of I think like what can happen.
Yeah, and the other thing too, like yes, it does have a it's 3.55 average, but I think it's a good time to point out that Velomachus's triggered ability, it's sort of a combination of card draw and ramp, right? You're getting to dig 7 cards deep. Out of those cards, you probably will get to cast one of them. So you're sort of getting a card, you're getting to cast it for free, and so I think that sort of can kind of adjust for a higher CMC because you're getting those freebies, you're getting to dig through your deck, and that's what we always want. At least that's what I always want on a commander, is either card draw or mana ramp or both. And you get like a Tulane situation, but maybe not to that degree. But I always want a little bit of that. But and I think that this commander has both those things. So that's definitely I think has the potential to make up for a little bit higher of an average CMC, but it's not like you're at like 4 point something, like that's when I think you need to start to worry.
Yeah, I think Velomachus is big and splashy, but not nearly as broken as Tulane. Like
no, God no, or even like Corvold. Yeah,
Tulane, you sneeze and you
even when you try to build him like your deck rally that we outlined on the show. A few months ago with the Karuga as the companion, and you couldn't have non-land cards in the deck that cost more than 3, or non-land permanent cards. Is that what it was?
What? Yeah, it was like 3 or more. I had to have cards that cost 3 or more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like that deck still, like it still pops off very, very easily.
Yeah,
that deck slaps.
I know. It's rough.
And it's all Tulane. It's like the fact that he triggers a draw every time he casts a creature and then puts a land into play untapped is just ridiculous. Like, why does he have to do those two things simultaneously?
Why couldn't it be tapped? Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It could have been tapped. It could have just drew you a card when you cast a creature, or maybe just played an extra land. It didn't have to do all of them.
And just to let people out there know, if you ever play against somebody and they're like, they have Tulane, they're like, no, don't worry, it's like a more fair deck. Tulane itself just isn't fair.
I don't think you can do that.
No, like he's just so powerful.
I really don't think you can. Like it's a great example of just too much value on a commander. So
yeah, I think Tulane and Corvold are in the same wheelhouse as far as just like
definitely.
In pretty much anything you do, it's just a broken card.
Yeah. Definitely. So, do you guys want to mention anything else in protection before we move on?
I'll just mention just like Gisela and Iroas, they're not giving your stuff indestructible kind of protection. They're making you take less damage in a certain way. So like we're attacking all the time, so Iroas just prevents all damage as it dealt to your attacking creatures, which is really sweet.
And it gives them menace, which is also nice when you're attacking with one big boy.
Yeah, like, there are stuff on the ground, and maybe you want to make sure you can attack with your Itali, and it doesn't get, like, they don't have a single blocker to take it down and stuff, so you can keep getting in there.
Yeah. And, like, Giselle is also nice because, Giselle is 4 red, double white for a 5/5 legendary angel. It has flying, first strike, and if a source would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, that source deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. And if a source would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent half that damage, round it up. So yeah, it protects, and it also just gets in there for more damage, sort of like a pseudo double strike effect.
Yeah, exactly. And like if you give Velomachus double strike, or you get like another combat, like you're almost killing somebody right there.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 21 damage coming at you, and not all at once, but
yeah,
it'll get you. It'll get you. So next category we have is Velomachus Tech. We have 2 cards here. We have Scroll Rack and Strionic Resonator. These are again just a couple of my favorite cards. I think Scroll Rack is going to be so integral to this deck working well and really popping off. So Scroll Rack was just reprinted in Commander Legends. It's 2 mana for an artifact. You can pay 1, tap it to exile any number of cards from your hand face down, put that many cards from the top of your library into your hand, then look at the exiled cards and put them on top of your library in any order. So this is just going to allow you to, if you have extra combat spells or whatever instants and sorceries you want to be able to cast, whichever you want to cast with Velomachus's trigger, you activate Scroll Rack, put them on top. Doesn't even have to be all of them. And then you attack and you get whatever you want. So and you just rinse and repeat. So I think this card is absolutely perfect for this deck.
And then of course Strionic Resonator, 2 mana, you pay 2 and tap it to copy target triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. So obviously we're just going to get to trigger Velomachus's ability again, which is quite powerful. We're going to get to cast 2 free spells just for the 1 attack.
Yeah, so with this card, you're going to get to dig 14 deep.
14 deep.
Yeah, this is just gas. And of course, you have the whole other category of attack triggers, with Backdraft, Hellkite, you can copy that. That's to cast those spells. It could be a lot of mana. Not necessarily, like whatever you're casting could be a Swords to Plowshares. But digging 14 deep is no joke. It's actually going to work well, unlike a card like Saheeli's Directive, which if you pay 14 into X, it just never seems to work well. So I think this is going to be good. Some cards, man, I don't know.
Yeah,
they seem
they seem
yeah, they do, and then it's just you try it a couple of times and they just don't perform. But both these cards, I think, if there are a couple of cards, like if you want to build this deck at home or a deck like it, I think these 2 cards are definitely 2 cards that you want to make sure make it into the final build. Okay, our next category here is, can we make it? I don't know, but we have Comet Storm, Neheb the Eternal, and Pyrohemia. And this is a very Eric section, because I think what he's trying to do here is kill everybody with either Comet Storm or Pyrohemia with mana from Neheb.
Yeah.
So I love it. I love it.
I love Neheb. Neheb's one of my favorite cards.
And so again, I was looking up how Neheb, I saw Neheb and I was like, hold on a second. And so it's at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, but if you have an additional combat phase, that's an additional post-combat main phase. So every single post-combat main phase, you get the mana from Neheb for every point of life lost from your opponents. So it just kind of snowballs.
Yeah. Yeah. So that could be pretty devastating.
Yeah. And then the other crazy part about that is Pyrohemia kind of even works with Neheb, because then if it's I get an extra 6 mana, let's use 4 of it into Pyrohemia. That is now 16 more damage that you've dealt to your opponents. You take that combat step, and now we have an extra 16 mana plus all the other damage you've already dealt. It's insane how much mana you can make off of this, and probably just kill everybody right there.
Oh yeah, that's hey, the game's got to end sometime.
Yeah, so I really love. I never saw this combo before, but Neheb and Pyrohemia, that's pretty sweet stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, or Neheb and Aggravated Assault. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can literally, that's just infinite right there.
I'd hope so.
Well, yeah, if you've done 5 damage, you can just, every single post-combat, you're going to get that mana, you get another combat phase. So,
yeah,
good game, friends.
Splash some Akroma's Will in there, and I'm sure that will end the game.
That's a recipe for success.
That would have also been a good name for this category.
Damn.
Recipe for success. Yeah.
Next up, we have Equip the Creatures. We have Blackblade Reforged, Darksteel Plate, Helm of the Host, Swiftfoot Boots, Trailblazer Boots, and Whisper Silk Cloak. I do love the Helm of the Host in here. It's 4 mana for a legendary equipment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except the token isn't legendary if equipped creature is legendary. That token gains haste, and the equip cost is 5. So, it's 9 mana all told, but I think that's a pretty good deal to even get like 1 more Velomachus and 1 more trigger, and it has like double haste. So, it's just like this card is even getting an additional Velomachus is gonna suck for everybody you're playing against. So I love seeing this card. Also, the price of this card has really gone up. I wasn't so sold on this card when it first came out. This is like a few years ago now, but it's like sitting around like $15 to $20 USD last time I checked. So it's definitely seeing play.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Also, I like that you didn't put Lightning Greaves in here. You do have Whisper Silk Cloak, but I realize that's more for the can't be blocked rather than the Shroud. For me, it's always really tempting in my more Voltron-y decks to put a Lightning Greaves in the deck. It's that 0 equip cost. It's a sure thing. I'm always like, I'll have another creature if I need to unequip and then equip some stuff and then re-equip Lightning Greaves. And it feels really bad when you don't. It sort of feels like when you need the 5th land to activate your Temple of the False God and you're just not getting it. But that example is definitely worse. But yeah, I just like that you didn't put it in here. You stuck with the Swiftfoot Boots. Because you're going to want to be targeting Velomachus a lot. So just from the perspective of like not putting in a card that's, kind of in that auto include category. I just like that you didn't do that. I'm definitely more than both of you. I sort of fall victim to that a lot more. I'm just like, yeah, put it in, put the Soul Ring in, just do it. But also, and Trailblazer Boots is another great one. I've had a lot of success with this card. It's 2 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature has non-basic land walk, so it can't be blocked as long as defending player controls a non-basic land, and the equip cost is 2. And in Commander, this card may as well say this equipped creature is unblockable.
Yeah, I think Trailblazer Boots are really like underlooked as a card, and it's just like usually is you're getting in no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yeah, even monocolor decks play.
Yeah, play some sort of non-basic
8 or 10. Yeah, like so, they're sitting there with the scavenger grounds. That somebody always is. Yeah, so
yeah,
definitely.
Nice to see Blackblade Reforged here.
Yeah,
2 mana for an equipment that says equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control. You can equip a legendary creature for 3 mana, and you can equip 7 for any other creature. So, obviously, you're going to be wanting to equip Velomachus or some other legendary creature, because that 7 mana equip cost is pretty steep.
But and I don't see a Brass Squire in here, so
yeah. As soon as you get this on Velomachus, though, you can pretty much cast any instant of sorcery in your deck, so no worries there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then this also really adds that Voltron aspect, because then we're probably like 2-shotting people or something like that when we have the Blackblade on there.
Oh yeah, and if you give it like double strike, absolutely
done. You're done.
You are going to be done. Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, like I did want to say, like I did do the Swiftfoot Boots because like we do have stuff like Temur Battle Rage and Psychotic Fury and stuff where we're probably gonna wanna target Velomachus. So you're gonna run into those situations if you had the Lightning Greaves where you're like, shit.
Yeah, totally. And even like Seize the Day, that extra combat spell, it has to target a creature. So
yes, yeah.
But Velomachus is probably going to be untapped most of the time, so that's not a great example. But anyways,
yeah, you can still target it though, so you can cast a spell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. It could be your only creature.
And then like the Trailblazer Boots and Whisper Silk Cloak are also they're more for the attack trigger creatures, because I need Bruce Tarl to attack to give double strike and stuff. So having those creatures be unblockable can really just help. Same with like the Handwire Garrison, and whatever it becomes later. Again, making all those tokens and stuff, just it not being able to be blocked, it just means you can keep making those tokens. So.
So the next category we have here is Boros needs card draw. The answer is yes. And
Yes.
we have one card here. It's Mind's Eye. So it's 5 mana for an artifact. Whenever an opponent draws a card, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. Classic.
Classic indeed.
Yeah, I haven't used this card in a long time, so I just decided to throw it in this deck.
Yeah.
I know it is dusted off. It does have a little bit of a higher mana cost for what it does, and you do need to keep paying mana. And there's like a lot of cards now that 6 mana, you draw an extra card at your upkeep and stuff like that. But this can draw you multiple cards throughout a turn. So,
Well, they wouldn't have reprinted it if people didn't play with it.
yeah,
Yes, they would.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know why. I don't know why I said that. I don't know why I said that. It sounds like I was trying to justify it. I think it's a good card. So next up, we have Ramp More. We have Arcane Signet, Boros Signet, Dockside Extortionist, Dowsing Dagger, with the flip side being Lost Veil, Fire Diamond, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, Marble Diamond, Mind Stone, Soul Ring, and Talisman of Conviction. Nice. We got 11 ramp spells. They're super low to the ground. And I don't know, like what more do you want? I love Dowsing Dagger. It's an artifact on its front side and a land on the back side. So it's 2 mana for an equipment. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent creates 2/0/2 green plant creature tokens with Defender. Equipped creature gets +2/+1, and whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may transform Dowsing Dagger, and it transforms into Lotus Veil. So you tap to add 3 mana of any one color to your mana pool. It's not a big deal to give somebody 2/0/2 plant tokens, because you're going to be swinging in with a 5/5 flyer most of the time. So not terribly worried about it. And that's a pretty big mana boost. So
And if it's sticking around too, like if you haven't flipped it already by the point you have Velomachus on the battlefield, it's nice that it adds 2 powers, so it gets it up to that 7 mark. So seven's kind of a nice number, because 3 hits is 21 for commander damage, and if you get double strike or get in a couple extra combats, you can finish off somebody pretty nicely. And it also helps cast some of your other instants and sorceries that are 7 CMC or 6 CMC.
Yeah, and it's kind of the one ramp spell in here that it isn't getting you to Velomachus. It's kind of better after you have Velomachus.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything else, like we got a lot of like gotta have that Mana Crypt and Mana Vault and stuff like that. Because we really need, the deck really hinges around having Velomachus out. So
yeah,
you get him out there as quick as possible.
Yeah, you want that 5 generic mana any way you can get it. Always like to see the diamonds. I'm really glad they got reprinted. They were getting too expensive. I mean, they were a few bucks, but I think that's too expensive for a card like this. And just love seeing them in commander decks.
Love to see Soul Ring.
Turn 1 Soul Ring, baby.
The namesake of our show. Hashtag it. Okay, last category we have lands, please. We have Ancient Tomb, Arch of Orazca, Axguard Armory, Bonder's Enclave, Castle Ardenvale, Clifftop Retreat, Command Beacon, Command Tower, Gyreach Sanitarium, Handwire Battlements. We have 13 mountains, Needle Verge Pathway, Flipside Pillar Verge Pathway, 5 Plains, Rogue's Passage, Sacred Foundry, Scavenger Grounds, Spectator Seating, Sunbaked Canyon, Sunhome Fortress of the Legion, War Room, and Wasteland. Got 18 basics. Very nice.
Yeah, and then I decided to throw in some fun stuff. So we have the Axguard Armory. It's the only tap land, I think, in the deck that I have.
Oh, wow. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Do we have any auras in here?
There are no auras, Riley.
Okay. Just check.
So we're only going for equipments. But yeah, you can pay 1, 2 red, and a white to tap it. You sacrifice the armory, search your library for an aura and/or an equipment card, reveal them, and put them into your hand, then shuffle. So we can go and find, if we want some protection, if we just want to really be getting in that damage, get that Black Blade out.
Yep, go get Dowsing Dagger for whatever reason. Going back to the Boros Needs card draw section, you do have Arch of Orazga and Bonder's Enclave in here, and I think those are going to do a lot of work in terms of card draw in this deck.
And War Room.
Yeah, War Room. Probably a deck that a card that most Boros decks should be running. Definitely most like mono white or mono red decks. Also great if you have a colorless commander deck. Boom, you're not even paying the life. It's great.
Yeah.
There you go.
But this deck even has ways of giving things lifelink, and so it's like paying that couple life here and there. Like we may be getting life back anyways. So.
Yeah.
Well, and you're going to be the aggressor most of the time. Like this deck looks like it takes a little bit of time to set up, but it's going to hit hard. So you're probably not too worried about your life.
Yeah. Which is true. Also, the other fun one was... I guess we should talk about the Handwire battlements.
Yeah.
So if it's just by itself, you can pay a red and tap it to give a creature haste until end of turn, which is always a nice ability.
Double haste.
Double haste. But then, of course, we do have the 3 red to tap it, and if you both own and control Handwire battlements and a creature named Handwire Garrison, exile them, meld them into Handwire the Writhing Township. That is a 7/4. And then, when it attacks, you get 2/3/2 Eldrazi tapped and attacking along with it.
Yeah, what does the flip side look like?
It looks like an attacking town.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy...
Like the town's doing the attacking.
Okay, yeah. That's pretty sweet. That's cool. Those are fun. Those meld cards are fun. I hope they bring those back sometime.
Yeah.
Well, we have Innistrad around the corner. You never know.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, you're right. I guess I'm just used to disappointment.
Just used to disappointment.
No, they've been good. Also, the foils from Strixhaven are good. Like they're not too curly. They're very good. They're not cloudy. They're good. Like even Call Time, the foils were still really curled, like Commander Legends, but they weren't really cloudy. None of the ones that I saw. But Strixhaven, pretty good. Pretty good card stock so far.
Pretty good.
Love me some Command Beacon. In case you don't know, it taps for colorless, and you can also tap, sacrifice it to put your commander into your hand from the command zone. It's great in obviously a Voltron deck, but especially in one where your commander is 7 mana, and that's just gonna get pricey, and it's Boros. Like it's just gonna you need that Command Beacon. And it's cheaper than it's been in many years.
Oh, yeah.
So now's the time. Well, the time was probably like a few months ago, but it's still pretty good.
I think it's still a good time to pick up Command Beacons.
I think it's still sitting around like $10, so it's not too bad. Another card that's kind of like it is card draw is Gyre Reach Sanitarium. So it's taps for generic, and you can pay 2 to tap it. Each player draws a card, then discards a card, and everybody likes the guy that's letting him draw cards.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall pretty solid land section. You didn't get too crazy with the price here. It's just it's definitely right in my wheelhouse. Got the Ancient Tomb, goes in every deck. Love it.
There you go.
Yeah. Like you can like definitely cut the I didn't put the fetch land in here, so if you want to add that, you can always do that. Ancient Tomb, and then also Wasteland I think is a little pricey, so you can always axe those cards to bring down the price of this section a little bit.
Yeah.
I wanted to also Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion. So this one you can pay 2, a red and a white, and tap it. Target creature gains double strike until end of turn.
Yep, that's a nice effect on a stick, especially and that's a whole sub theme of this deck is the double strike.
Yeah, given Velomachus double strike, because then you're just going to kill your opponents all that quicker.
Velomachus, Combatachus. Okay, so the time has come for us to move on to our honorable mentions segment, where Riley and I share some cards that might work well in this deck or a deck like this. I have like 10 or 12, Riley. How many do you have? Riley's like 1.
Looks like I have about
2,
9.
3. Okay, I'll start. Some of mine are like 2 cards, so I was being a little bit of a lady cheaterly. First up, I have Divine Reckoning. So it's a lot like Debt of Loyalty and Slash the Ranks. it gets rid of it's 2 and 2 white for sorcery. Each player chooses a creature they control, then destroy the rest, and then it has flashback for 5 and 2 white. So like I said, it's like those other board wipes, letting your opponent choose the best creature, at least in the example of Debt of Loyalty. But what I love about this card is that it has flashback, so you can get them again if you need to. And a card that's in the same wheelhouse is Single Combat. It's 3 white for sorcery. Each player chooses a creature or planeswalker they control, then sacrifices the rest. Players can't cast creature or planeswalker spells until the end of your next turn. So I like this one a little bit more. It protects you a little bit more from the snapback from whatever the creature they decided to keep. Not as well as Debt of Loyalty, of course, but it stops them from casting those spells. It also hits planeswalkers, and it can be pretty difficult to get around the sacrifice clause. So that's it is 1 more mana, but I think both these cards are pretty sweet in a lot of Voltron decks with white in them.
Yeah, I always didn't like Single Combat because it's till the end of your next turn. But in this deck where there's a lot of instant sorceries, and that's what Velomachus is trying to do, I actually like that card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, that didn't even occur to me. I'm just like, no, you just keep attacking. But of course, yeah, that works even better. Okay, what do you have for us, Rouse?
All right, first up, under the extra combat section, not an instant or sorcery, but another creature. And there's a few that you could probably find if you wanted to kind of expand this section, but Combat Celebrant is one that I had in mind. So 2 and a red for a 4/1 human warrior. If Combat Celebrant hasn't been exerted this turn, you may exert it as it attacks. And when you do, untap all other creatures you control. And after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So doing exactly what it sounds like, just giving you an opportunity to attack again.
And that's another one of those cards that gives you a combat right after a combat.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I thought about this card because, of course, I did like a keyword search, additional combat, as I'm sure we all did, and yeah, I definitely considered this one. So I guess I was gonna save this one till the end, but this is sort of in the wheelhouse of the extra combat. So I feel like I mentioned this recently on an episode, but I was thinking a card like Chance for Glory might work. So it's 1 red-white for an instant. Creatures you control gain indestructible. Take an extra turn after this one. At the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game. So we've been talking about situations where you'll be taking a relatively long turn with a few extra combat steps, and so you might find yourself in a situation where you're not really worried about that you're going to lose the game at the beginning of the next end step. So, there are other extra turn spells in red. They usually cost 2 red, like Final Fortune or cards like that. I really like this one, because it's an instant and it also protects your creatures. So this could just, maybe you just need that extra turn. You can also hit it off Velomachus, so it could just be gravy. Maybe you don't need that extra turn, but you want to take that extra turn, and you can do so. So yeah, I didn't really have anything for extra combat or that category, but I think this one is it could be pretty spicy in this deck, but it is a risk. But
yeah, it's definitely a big risk. But I'm a big fan of Chance for Glory.
Yeah, but you got to risk it for the biscuit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this deck is all about doing crazy explosive things. So
yeah, and I do like the comment you made, Kevin, and it does pair well with other extra combat spells, right? Just extending the length of that new turn. I think that that's definitely something that I hadn't really considered, but yeah, I agree. All right, next up on my list is a new card, Reconstruct History. So 2 red-white for a sorcery. Return up to 1 target artifact card, up to 1 target enchantment card, up to 1 target instant, up to 1 target sorcery, and up to 1 target planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand and exile it. So there's a few artifacts kicking around. There's only a couple enchantments. I'm not too worried about that, but of course instants and sorceries are cards that you'd be more than happy to get back to your hand to reuse later. And I know, like, as the even though this is under the value spells category for me, it's kind of in the similar wheelhouse as Boros needs card draw category. Because it is a form of card advantage. So
sure is, yeah.
I think that any opportunity you can get a little bit extra gas is something worth considering.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I thought about this card also. And what's great is that you don't have to fulfill every clause, right?
Yeah.
It's up to one.
Yeah.
It's, as much as I love Decimate, I'm glad that they don't template cards like that anymore.
Yeah. Not too often.
No, I think they've definitely started leaning more towards players having a good time in the last few years. At least it's what the cards do, and maybe not so much the actual structural integrity of the card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, of course, like, there's a lot of artifact removal out there. So, like, there is a lot of ramp, and then you still have all the... Like, there's a good amount of artifacts in here. I could see you probably getting 3 cards back a lot when this would go off in the deck.
Yep.
Okay, so this is for... I tried to do these in order. The protection category. I have Dolmen Gate. So this is it's 2 mana for an artifact. Prevent all combat damage that will be dealt to attacking creatures you control. So this is like a cheaper version of Aroas with fewer abilities, and it's easier to remove. There obviously is like a lot of exile creatures going around. I don't know how much I see exile enchantments. We did mention Return to Dust or Crush Contraband. You don't really see Revoke Existence. That's a sorcery, so it kind of stinks. But that being said, I think that this card would probably be less of a target for removal over Aroas. I mean, all things being equal, I'd probably want to run both because this is just a do-nothing artifact. But, not that you're hurting for card slots, but, this is definitely a possibility that's doing what you want the deck to do. So just a little something.
Yeah, it's a cool card.
Last one for me under value spells is a card called Double Vision.
Double Vision.
Nice.
So I figured, given the theme of extra combats, you might as well just throw in some extra copies, right? So
yeah, I think so.
Double Vision's an enchantment that's 3 red. Whenever you cast the first instant or sorcery spell each turn, copy that spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So, first spell you cast with Velomachus, you get an extra copy, and hopefully that's an extra combat, so you get 2 extra combats.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I have moving on to the Dolmen Gate was protection, so I'm still on protection here. I guess I skipped right on past. Value spells. Oh boy. Okay. Well,
You're done.
Well, yeah. Okay. Right, I guess I gotta wait. So these next two, it's 2 cards. They're relatively the same. It's Red Elemental Blast and Pyroblast. So it's 1 red for an instant. Choose 1, counter target's blue spell or destroy target blue permanent. Pyroblast is templated a little bit differently. It's also choose 1, counter target spell if it's blue or destroy target permanent if it's blue. So I think these are obviously more meta dependent, but a properly targeted counterspell, like say one at the to counter the first extra combat spell you play off Velomachus, could really stop you from popping off with multiple combat steps. So I think these would be something to keep in your back pocket if you ever had need of them. I know, like in a deck that doesn't have blue and obviously has red, these have definitely gotten me out of some hot water. Actually, I'm thinking of, what is that called? That Lapse of Certainty. It's a white counterspell. So it's 2 and a white for an instant. Counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, put it on top of its owner's library instead of into that player's graveyard. So I don't love that it's 3 mana. I mean, it's only 1 white pip, but again, going back to the, hey, maybe I don't need to take another turn, so I don't need to worry about this card on top of my opponent's library. Maybe this is a better include because it is just a no questions asked counterspell. But I think a lot of the time, as an opponent playing against this deck, if I'm playing blue, like, I'm either countering Velomachus being cast, or I'll be countering, an extra combat spell. So, yeah, I'm always worried about those counter spells, I guess.
Next up for me, under the removal section, I've got Wear Tear. So the Wear it's a split card. It's a fuse card from Dragon's Maze. The Wear part is an instant. It says destroy target artifact for 1 and a red. And the Tear part is an instant, and it says destroy target enchantment for a white mana. It has that fuse ability, though, so if you are casting it from your hand, you can choose to cast one or both halves by paying their mana costs. So if you do hit it off Velomachus, notably you would only be able to cast one or the other, because the fuse piece mentions that it has to be from your hand. So a little bit of a note there, but just kind of in that similar vein of talking about, competition when it comes to Return to Dust. This is like one of those cards where, obviously it destroys, it doesn't exile. So if exile is something you really need, then that's not going to do it for you. But it has that extra bit of flexibility in mana cost as well, which I think is a big upside. If you're hankering to kill an artifact or an enchantment, you're paying basically half the price in most cases. So,
yeah, sometimes you're hankering for a spankering. Okay, next up, these are still protection cards. I'm just crazy. I'm crazy about that protection category. I don't know why. I really am. It's one of my favorite categories. So I have Grand Abolisher first. It's 2 white for a 2/2 human cleric. During your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. And I also have, similarly, Defense Grid. It's 2 mana for an artifact. During each player's turn, each other player's spells cost 3 more to cast. So I would probably lean, if I had to pick one of these, I'd probably lean more toward Grand Abolisher, because it only affects you, whereas Defense Grid, helps your opponents in a way. So, that's not necessarily my cup of tea. I think in the right deck, it would work really well. But you're going to be, the deck's all about attacking, right? So it's all about things happening during your turn, and Grand Abolisher just, any deck that is really concerned with things happening during their turn that's in white, Grand Abolisher just says nope to your opponents for the most part. So I like it.
Yeah, you get to just feel safe when you're trying to go off, which is great.
Yeah, and actually in that same vein, there's also just kind of a one-shot effect is Silence. It's 1 white for an instant. Your opponents can't cast spells this turn. If you're just like, you know what, I can win, I'm just going to cast Silence. And hey, if they counter it, you got rid of a counter spell, and you just bite your lip and give it hell anyway.
Yeah.
Next up on my list under removal is another new card from Strixhaven, Draconic Intervention. So just another option as far as a board wipe is concerned. 2 red for a sorcery. It says, as an additional cost to cast the spell, exile an instant or sorcery from your graveyard, and Draconic Intervention deals X damage to each non-dragon creature, where X is the exiled card's mana value. If a creature dealt damage this way would die, you exile it instead, and then you exile Draconic Intervention. So nice that it doesn't hit Velomachus no matter what. And most of these extra combat spells are a high mana value to begin with, so you're probably getting somewhere around 4 to 7 damage dealt to each non-dragon creature.
Yeah, too bad this wasn't like Chandra's Ignition, where it also hits your opponents.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that card wins games.
Yeah.
Next up in the where's this section? I guess this is in the this is Velomachus tech, so it is Lithoform Engine. It's 4 mana for a legendary artifact. You can pay 2 to tap it, copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. You can pay 3, tap it, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy, and pay 4, tap it, copy target permanent spell you control. So, I mean, all these things are great, but if I was sort of thinking this of this as more of a more expensive strionic resonator, right? That first ability does the same thing. So it's just more gravy. But, copying extra combat spells is also nothing to shine at. I mean, if you're attacking with Velomachus, and maybe it's not the first turn after you cast him, you've got 3 mana lying around, you're casting a extra combat spell for free, why not copy it? And the copying of permanents, again, that's kind of more gravy, but just a card that would add a little bit more of or a little more redundancy for Strionic Resonator. It is 2 more mana, so definitely something to consider, when you're in that situation.
Hell yeah.
And it's also a little pricey too. I think this card is still kind of pricey. Maybe it always will be.
I think it always will be.
It has a lot of applications.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Next card up for me under equipped creatures. I have Sunforger. So Sunforger is 3 mana for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +4/+0 and has this activated ability where you can pay a red and a white, unattach Sunforger, and search your library for a red or white instant card with converted mana cost 4 or less and cast it without paying its mana cost. Then shuffle your library, and it has an equip for 3. So I love running Sunforger in any kind of deck that can include it, because Sunforger and Boros Charm are fantastic together, and I imagine Teferi's Protection would have a similar kind of feeling.
Oh yeah.
So just having that flexibility, that kind of extra oomph in power for Velomachus when you need it, and that extra level of protection or versatility for tutoring and casting instants from your deck makes Sunforger a pretty fun equipment to play with.
Yeah, and there's about 10 that you can hit, so that's not it's a pretty good number. 10. Rin Tin Tin. Okay, next up, I put this in the wait, let me I was looking at gotta go back to custom sections. Boy, Deckstats.net. What a great website.
Love it.
So next up, this is, we're still in the same section for me. We're still in Velomachus Tech. So have not moved on. So I thought the fetch lands, we did talk about how we're trying to keep this, or at least this deck is in a budget. It is what it is. It's not the highest, it's not the lowest, but fetch lands would just help out Scroll Rack so much, because as much as I'm thinking of like having a handful of extra combat spells or whatever, and then scroll racking them to the top and then attacking with Velomachus and then getting the cast the one I want, that's going to happen a lot. But there's probably going to be some times where you're like, I don't have anything. I need to get rid of this garbage. I need to find out what's on top, and then I need to shuffle that garbage away. So just like the on-color fetch lands would help with that. Not to kick a dead horse, but with Narset, they really, really help. So, maybe just as a way to if you're going to build this deck, as a way to upgrade it, like throw in some fetches. And I mean, it doesn't have to be the, really, really expensive ones. You could throw a Fabled Passage in here, for example, or I don't know, it's Prismatic Vista is probably still cheaper than any of the dual colored fetches, I would think.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's on par with some.
Yeah, you're like maybe I think like Windswept Heath is definitely one of the cheaper ones.
Yeah.
Same with like Flooded Strand.
Yeah, Flooded Strand too. Both lands that you could run in here. So yeah, I was just thinking, like, I know how well they work with Scroll Rack, and there aren't that many shuffle effects. So I think that I think that could work really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that's what's cool about the fetch lands. Like it just needs to grab one of the colors at least, and it's like useful to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, especially since you already have a steam or sorry, not a steam fence. Sacred Foundry.
Yeah, so you can also grab that.
I wish you had a steam fence.
Yeah. Need that steam fence to cast those Izzet spells.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Prismari.
There we go. Okay, next up, under Boros needs card draw. A card I've suggested is Jeska's Will. So, not technically card draw, but Jeska's Will is 2 and a red for
like
sorcery. It's says choose one. If you control your commander as you cast the spell, you may choose both. You add a red for each card in target opponent's hand, and you exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. So I was kind of thinking like Velomachus would probably appreciate some sort of ritual effect to either get Velomachus out sooner or get some of the other big spells out sooner if needed. And Jessica's Will kind of does double duty. Like if you are casting it with Velomachus' ability, hopefully you can use that red mana right away before it goes away at the end of combat. Or otherwise you have 3 new spells to play with. Just kind of big splashy card that helps set up some big turns.
Mm-hmm. Totally, yeah. This card that I'm suggesting, this was the card I was talking about when I mentioned Aggravated Assault at the top of this episode. And I guess we can throw this into Equip the Creatures, but it could also go in Recipe for Victory, or whatever we were calling that. Success. Can we make it? It's Sword of Feast and Famine. It's 3 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from black and from green. And whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card, and you untap all lands you control. The equipped cost is 2. So, with enough lands and Aggravated Assault, you just have you can just endlessly attack, and beyond that, maybe you don't have Aggravated Assault. It's just a great way to keep your lands untapped, get a little bit of card advantage against at least one opponent. Again, this is another pricey card. Like this card kind of dipped, but man, it can just not catch a break. Print it into standard. Come on.
Actually this card works great with like how you were saying before at the top of the episode with the Aggravated Assault, so that's really sweet.
Aggravated Assault is just so stupid. Like oh man, I love that card.
Next up under Boros Needs Card Draw, Ignite the Future. Again, not technically card draw, but I'm putting it there anyway.
Oh yeah, well it's Boros. Yeah, we need little tricks like this.
Exactly. So Ignite the Future is a sorcery for 3 and a red. It says exile the top 3 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. And if the spell was cast from your graveyard, you may play cards this way without paying their mana costs. And it has flashback for 7 and a red. So just a kind of like a pseudo harmonize effect. I mean, it's kind of impulsive, but it gives you to the end of your next turn, which is nice, especially if you hit a couple lands and you're able to play a couple lands and whatever spell you hit there. But it's also nice, like if you have a scroll rack out or a way to manipulate the top cards of your library, maybe you can set it up so that you can flash it back and play some big splashy extra turn spells or extra combat spells and have a big turn.
Yeah, that's very synergistic actually. That's a really good call.
Yeah, and I love this card for the flashback effect since you can cast those spells without paying their mana cost.
Yeah.
I really like Ignite the Future. Good card.
Yeah.
Okay, so my this is my second to last card here. It is going in Equip the Creatures, very similar to Trailblazer Boots. It is Prowler's Helm. It's 2 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature can't be blocked except by walls, and it has equip cost 2. I think Trailblazer Boots there are definitely going to be more situations where Trailblazer Boots is strictly unblockable because you will run into the odd wall in Commander. I think more often than you run into a deck that doesn't have non-basic lands. But I think if you wanted to add more redundancy to this part of the deck, this equipment is ready and waiting.
Moving on to the next section for me is Ramp More, and I've got a couple cards here that kind of lead to the same kind of discussion. But whenever I'm thinking about a ramp package for a deck, I'm thinking about when I want to be casting certain spells along the curve, and Velomachus is kind of in a sweet spot at 7 mana. So having a combination of like 2 mana ramp spells and 4 mana ramp spells really helps curve into that 7 mana slot. So even though I usually shy away from 4-mana ramp spells like Hedron Archive, that's something that I would definitely consider running in a deck like this if I was looking at making that smooth curve into Velomachus, especially since Velomachus has that haste and can swing in right away and do most of the work for you.
Yeah. It pays you back right away.
Yeah, Hedron Archive's one, but Everflowing Chalice is one that kind of does both duties. Given that Everflowing Chalice has multi-kicker for 2, and whenever you kick it, or however many times you kick it for that multi-kicker, it's going to get a charge counter and tap for the amount of mana equal to the amount of charge counters it has on it. So it can play double duty as both a 2-mana rock and a 4-mana rock that taps for 2 mana. So something to consider there if like you're looking at making it a little bit more budget friendly, or just trying to consider when you're casting Velomachus in the curve.
Yeah, I actually really like that.
Yeah, that's it. Did just get reprinted if you want the old border look. And there yes, it is quite budget friendly. So my last card here, this card wasn't originally on my list. Like I said, my last card was actually Chance for Glory, but thinking about Eric, what you were saying about like Bruce Tarl and getting that attack trigger without worrying about the chaos of combat. I thought of the card Reconnaissance. It's 1 white for an enchantment, and you can pay 0 to remove target attacking creature you control from combat and untap it. So if you wanted to get that attack trigger off of a creature, but you didn't want to attack with it, or didn't want to worry about losing it in combat, you just boom, do this. This deck is a lot of quite a few similarities to Narset. And probably any deck that really cares about attack triggers, Narset's just a measly little 3/2, and this card definitely gets me those attack triggers without worrying that I'm going to lose Narset. So this card definitely gets it done all the way back from Exodus. That was my final card.
Well, it sounds like we're all wrapped up then.
Okay, nice. Wow, look at that. Man, it's like we've been doing this for a while. Okay, everybody. Well, we're going to bring this episode to a close. We thank you for listening. And if you have any questions or suggestions for the deck we outlined today, you can leave them in the comment section below, or DM us on Instagram, or you can use the link to the Deckstats deck list and leave some comments there. Maybe throw Eric some karma. And if you don't have an account, I don't think you can do that. So get an account, or you're just going to be looking at it, is basically the situation we're in. We're going to be back next week with a little bit more of a personal topic, I'll say. And it's still going to be entertaining, don't worry. We're not going to talk about ourselves or anything. But just take it easy until then. And thanks for listening.
As always, thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Get your extra Combatachus in.
Combatachus.
Sounds like a weird disease.
Turn 1 Soul Ring.